Welcome back to Edwin Eisendrath's It's the Democracy, Stupid on WCPT 820.
Well, I don't know. Bill Scher is back. He's the politics editor of the fabulous Washington Monthly. I just don't know how we compete with Frank Sinatra coming back from the dead and topping the Billboard chops. We just heard it from the news. Wow. I don't know, Bill. We got our work cut out for us.
We might just have to just call it a day.
Yep.
Just play some Sinatra and go home.
Yeah. Hey, no, I can't do that. In part because you wrote about the U.S. Senate primary in Maine, and that's sort of interesting. And there are themes in that story I want to explore with you. So would you talk us through it? Tell us about it.
Sure. Some folks, if you're really obsessed with politics, you know. If you're not, you may not know. Susan Collins is the incumbent senator in Maine, moderate Republican, the only Republican in a seat up for re-election next year in a state that Kamala Harris won. But Democrats have long seen her as kind of as a phony. She doesn't really cross the aisle when it counts, and her poll numbers are not great. What's that?
She is concerned.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely seen as very vulnerable in 2026. Earlier, people who had some loose affiliation with the Bernie Sanders presidential campaigns recruited a relative political novice, Graham Plattner. He's in his 40s. He's a military vet. He's from a small town in northern Maine. He's on the planning board. He's the harbor master in a small town, but otherwise not much of their governmental experience. He had a good, kind of real guy vibe, fire breathing, struck a chord, and was getting got Bernie Sanders' endorsement and some other endorsements. But Chuck Schumer recruited Janet Mills, who's the incumbent governor, a more classic candidate for a Senate race, two-term governor, successful record. But she's 78, and there's definitely some backlash against older candidates in the Democratic Party right now. And then when Janet Mills came in, a bunch of old social media posts from Graham Plattner surfaced. We said some racist things, some sexist things, some politically intemperate things. It also came out that he has a tattoo on his chest that has some Nazi associations. He disavowed the old social media posts. He said he didn't know about the Nazi connection to his tattoo. He covered up the tattoo. Some people thought that this guy's campaign is over. Some of his top aides quit. But the first two polls that came out after these revelations, he was ahead of Mills and was polling competitively, even a little bit ahead of Susan Collins. Now, a more recent poll came out last week that has Mills ahead of Plattner. And so you could average the polls and say Plattner's still in this thing, might even be ahead. Or you can look at the chronology of the polls and say there's been a huge swing towards Mills. We can't say for sure yet. The thing that we can say, and that I wrote about in my article, is there's a massive generational divide amongst Democrats between these two candidates, where Mills is cleaning up with older voters and Plattner is cleaning up with younger voters. And I think that has something to do with how these cohorts view the establishment, view social media postings, what they're willing to accept, what they're willing to not accept, that I think is going to play out in some of their primaries over the course of the next 12 months.
Yeah, I love this story. And I love it not just because of what it says about Maine, but because the themes are really important for the whole country. How should a big tent party handle growth and change? I assume the goal of Democrats is to grow our coalition. It's a game of addition, after all, and to put forth candidates who can win and can govern. And one approach is to put smart leaders in a room with lots of polling data and experience and identify folks to rally around. That's the Chuck Schumer, Rahm Emanuel approach. Another is to have primaries that really work. and that is that Sanders approach. That's the Democratic Party of Wisconsin has been successful taking that approach. They don't get involved in primaries. They get involved to make them lively. They don't pick candidates. And so, and some are even arguing, like in New York, that the latter approach, where you have primaries and ranked choice voting, is sort of the optimum strategy to pick candidates who can win and govern. I don't know really what the answer is. I suppose it's also complicated, Bill, by money. And Schumer and like Rahm, these are money guys, so they want to be able to tell us what horses to bet on, because that's how they get the money. What do you think?
I want to push back at least on part of your premise there, because I don't think anyone is operating with consistency on the notion of whether primaries are good or bad. A lot of people who like Graham Plattner are mad at Chuck Schumer for creating more of a primary. They would have rather Graham Plattner had a free pass at this thing. You don't see a lot of agitation saying, how dare Sherrod Brown have no real competition in the primary in Ohio? A lot of progressives like Sherrod Brown, and they don't want him to be, and they don't mind that Sherrod Brown is old either, by the way. So it's not consistency about age and experience. So ideology is part of this. And depending on the race you're talking about, gender can come into play, race can come into play. There are certain people that might be more favorable for a female candidate over a male candidate, but in Maine, progressives, don't want the female candidate because she's older and more tied to Chuck Schumer. And underlying all of this is, I think, what you started at, which is, what's it going to take to win? And there's no consensus on that point.
And what to win and to govern, I mean, but just on Mills also, she's tied to Schumer, I guess. Sure, he recruited her, but she also had the courage to go into the White House and stand down Donald Trump, which like 11 people have done in 10 years.
Well, that's why again, it's these things don't cut super cleanly. I don't think Janet Mills had a real reputation of being like a Joe Manchin type Democrat.
No.
But I do think there is a more innate skepticism of the establishment, quote unquote, amongst younger voters.
Absolutely.
And so if you have that taint on you, regardless of whether you're someone who has like a real record of scandal like Andrew Cuomo, or something like Janet Mills is just kind of more of a generic Democrat. If you're seen as establishment, younger voters have a tendency to say, I'm not sure about you. And the kind of social media posting you get from Graham Plattner, where look, Andrew Cuomo is persona non grata amongst progressives because he had legitimate allegations of sexual misconduct. Graham Plattner said some callous things about sexual assault on social media. That gets kind of pushed aside among some progressives. I quoted someone in my article, the woman tattoo artist who covered up his tattoo, who said, you know what? Everyone says things on social media that they. I'm not quoting verbatim here, but the general thrust of it was like, we all say things on social media that can be, imperfect and we might regret and want to pull back. But this just shows he's not vetted by the establishment. This shows he's a real person. He's authentic.
Yeah, that's interesting. He's also, unlike Andrew said the charges are bogus. He apologized first, but then he said the charges are bogus. Railroaded. This isn't right. But Plattner said, you know what? I shouldn't have said that stuff. It was wrong.
Right.
That's the difference.
Definitely. Well, they're not identical situations. But the point I'm trying to make is I think there are people who are using different standards of criteria depending on degree of distance from the establishment and to some extent ideology. And a through line of all this is what's it gonna take to win? Do you need a guy like Graham Plattner? Do you need someone who's rough around the edges, who seems more real to win, or do you need someone who's won statewide before, actually governed, actually made tough decisions, knows how to navigate these political moments of turbulence. You don't know what the right answer is until only you look at the test of theory with one person. Only one person clears the primary.
Well, I mean, we have some history. I mean, like winning and governing aren't quite the same. Like Pennsylvania elected John Fetterman. Right? He was the non-establishment guy.
Yep.
And it turns out in governing, I mean, this may be because of his stroke too, who knows, but he's been disappointing to many of the people who elected him.
Right. I mean, Fetterman's a very interesting case, unusual case.
Right.
Because he had been around the block. He'd been a mayor, he'd been lieutenant governor. Like, you think you know a guy, and then he gets in there and he goes the other way. People could always grow, evolve, just disappoint, change once they get to a certain place. It's a bigger risk, in my opinion, when someone really hasn't been elected to much of anything at all. You really don't know what they're going to do. They may be great. They may meet the moment and be amazing.
Yeah.
But they may
not.
do weird things. And you just never really know until you know.
Yeah. Well, so how, I mean, I don't know that the Democrats, I don't mean the Democratic Party, the Democrats generally across the country have a strategy for dealing with this, because there are going to be groups with money or groups who I mean, with money, I guess the only way to say it, because that's what Schumer's doing here. He's saying we're going to use the money that we have in the campaign trail. These are going to be our candidates, and he can raise it that way. And they're going to be voters who have a different point of view. This is going to be a bit messy, and we're going to have to assess this during those primaries.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have competitive primaries. I'm probably not going to give you a comprehensive list here, but it looks like Maine, looks like Texas, looks like Minnesota, looks like Michigan. I think those are the biggest ones, because Ohio's looking like Scher.
Well, we have one in Illinois among Democrats to replace.
Right, that's right. That is, but Illinois is one where whoever emerges
wins.
from that is almost certain to win.
Yeah.
Whereas Maine, Michigan, well, Michigan could be close. It's a democratically held seat. Texas is a long shot for Democrats, and so this is why it's sort of the biggest thing here. This is, forgive me for being a little meandering right now.
No, but, but this is what Democrats, not the Democratic Party, whatever that is, but regular people in the states have to figure it out, and they have to be able to say, okay, look, lots of people with lots of different interests have put candidates before us. Who is the person who we think has the best chance of taking our interests and making them part of our future? And that means you got to be behind somebody who can win, because you can't do that if you don't win. Well, you can in some ways, but if you, but you probably want somebody who will win and then govern well.
Yes, and what's particularly tricky in this year, 2026, it's looking like a blue wave year. Everything in 2025, all the special elections and scheduled elections show Democratic overperformance relative to a year ago. Doesn't matter what state you're talking about, what district, up ballot, down ballot, pretty consistently big Democratic wins and performing above, mean.
So did 2023, just so we're clear. But yeah.
Well, but this is looking more like 2017. Trump was in office in the first term.
Yep.
The discontent with Trump was pretty apparent quickly.
Yep.
And that extended through 2018, where Democrats took the House.
Yep.
And
2020, where they threw him out. Yeah.
Right. Well, right. Exactly. And so you're looking at 2023. There was a Democratic incumbent there, so it's a different circumstance.
Yeah.
This is a classic set of circumstances where you get a pendulum swing away from the president's party, and Democrats only need to pick up net 3 to take back the House. And the average in the past 25 years is like 31. Democrats when Biden was president in 2022. Democrats lost 9 House seats, and I was like, wow, that's an amazing year for a president's party. So Democrats have to really blow this to not get the House.
Maybe. I mostly agree with you. The asterisk I want to put on that is John Roberts, who could resegregate the South and get rid of any. He's about to say racial gerrymandering is legal, and you have plenty of time to do it before the next election.
I do not think Republicans can gerrymander their way out of a blue wave circumstance. You know, that could help
by the way, I don't either, but they're going to try.
Oh, sure. And Democrats are fighting back on that too. So that could all, essentially.
Yeah, well, they could. I mean, the gerrymander could become an idiot mander because they're going to turn, two 15% safe districts into 10% safe districts, and that difference may cost them all three.
Well, it's a very dangerous move on the Republicans' part to do that right ahead of a wave. Wave is I wrote about this, by the way, in the Washington Monthly about Texas. So the headlines are Republicans drew themselves 5 seats. Well, how did they do that? They took Latino voters who voted for Republicans last year,
time. Right,
and spread them out. And when you're doing gerrymandering, you typically look at patterns over multiple election cycles. You don't base it just on one election cycle. Yeah. And so they're taking a really big risk to think that they're going to stick with them, not just in the next election, but a next election that's likely to go well the other way.
I know.
Because you got a brewing wave. But I'm getting far flung from the point I was trying to get up before about the Senate. Yep. So my point about the House is that since it's looking like a wave year and Democrats don't need a lot of seats, candidate quality is not that important, probably. They're probably going to get the House no matter who you put up there. On the Senate side, they got a net 4, and the map is terrible for Democrats because, again, you only have one Republican-held seat in a blue state. You got one other in a purple state, and everything else is a reach. Yep. And so candidate quality is really important there. But again, no one can say with absolute authority, this is what candidate quality means in 2026. Does it mean a Janet Mills? Does it mean a Graham Plattner? Does it mean a Mondami type? Does it mean, a more moderate type, like a Mickey Scher or Abigail Spanberger? No one can say with confidence, and that's why it's just going to, as you said, it's going to be a little messy. It's just going to play out.
I love it.
Voters are going to make different decisions in different states.
I love it. I think they should. I think so the answer to your question, does it take a Mamdani type? Yes. Does it take a Mickey Sherrill type? Yes. Right? The answer is yes. It takes whatever type can bring together the people in that jurisdiction to demand that their candidate wins.
And so one thing I point out in my article, the other more recent article in the Washington Monthly, so Maine has literally the oldest electorate in the country.
Oh, that's interesting.
Texas is the second youngest electorate.
Also interesting.
So maybe Janet Mills makes more sense for Maine.
In Maine, yeah.
Now the Texas primary, because you have Jasmine Crockett entering, and Colin Allred exiting. So Colin Allred was more establishment favored. Yep. He already was a House member. He ran for Senate before. He didn't win, but he didn't get any kind of big controversy. He's a former football player. Yeah, he's also African American, but has kind of a moderate demeanor. He's not a big fire breather type, and so he seemed kind of a safe bet. But he wasn't catching fire. He was already running in a primary with another guy named James Tallarico, who's younger, only 36 in the state legislature, and I think just had more of an energetic. Farther Bay might be overstating it, but I think had a bit more populist. And the Polish. About get in, Oliver was doing even worse, and so Oliver threw in the towel and said, "This is just not for me. I'm going to go try to get a House seat back." So now you got Crockett, who's in her mid-40s, African American woman, against Tallarico, 36, white guy, but also quite progressive. Neither one of these two you would call moderates or center right.
Nope.
And so we just got our very first poll on that yesterday. where you, as you might expect, you had a racial divide where African American voters were more with Crockett and whites and Hispanics more with Tellerico. And the AHC was actually breaking more Tellerico's way than Crockett's, but Crockett was ahead overall. So that's going to be touch and go probably, who's going to come out ahead on that one.
And we have to hold the coalition together so that the losers' supporters will join with the winners.
That's the ideal situation for Democrats. And I do think that you did not see, as much as there are tensions and divisions, there are generational divides or ideological divides about, Israel, Palestine, as much as that is present in the Democratic Party, it has not been debilitating to the Democratic Party in 2025 elections. Everybody was coming together on election day and doing very well.
He's a very unifying figure for Democrats.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the Republican side. This is what the Democrats' challenge is, how we figure this out. The Republican primaries work differently. Right? Donald Trump says, this is my guy, and most everybody else hides. But not
that's
completely.
The way it's been. But not... A lot of the times, yes. Yeah. But we have examples where it's not the case. Trump went against Brian Kemp for governor in 2022.
Right. Some guys who have big are well known can withstand this. But now we have the Indiana factor. Something new is happening.
Yes.
I love the Midwest.
You're seeing.
I love the Midwest.
Well, we're seeing that. Some Republicans recognize that Donald Trump's not going to be around forever. He's not going to be president for life. He's not going to be on the ballot in 2028. Donald Trump even admits that himself. And his poll numbers are bad. And 2026 is not a great year. And again, as we were saying before, gerrymandering's a risk. It's not a layup that just adds you seats. It's a risk for incumbents.
Yes, it is.
And so Indiana legislature said, why should I spread out the vote on my seat at the behest of some guy who's just desperate to hold on to the House, who doesn't get subpoenaed? That's not my concern. My concern is keeping my seat. I got a dish that works for me. So that seems to be the calculation that was made there. We know in Texas, before they bent the knee to Trump, the Texas Republicans were privately saying to Trump, don't make us do this.
Yep.
This is not a good deal for us. But they were too afraid to stand up.
And the Indiana guys did in this process. The Republicans, what they did was they told the country, do you know what's happening to us? They're intimidating us. They're coming here and they're sending text messages to my grandkids. The Republicans are the ones, not Democrats, who are saying this. The Republicans are talking about what the Trump administration is doing. And that carries a very different weight across the country. I mean, Indiana Republicans, for gosh sakes. This is like, last I checked, one of them was his last vice president. This isn't liberal territory.
I can't. I don't have a mind meld with Republican state legislatures, so I shouldn't. I don't want to talk as if I know exactly what their calculations were. But what I would suspect is these are people who are probably pretty close to their constituents. Mm-hmm. These are they're not in an Oval Office. They're not far removed from the people who vote for them, and they have to be aware that people on the ground in America are frustrated by higher prices. Yep. They were told they're going to get lower prices, and they didn't get them. And whatever, Trump has had a bond with a lot of voters, and I can't trivialize it. He is where he is electorally, but I do think a good deal of that bond was negative bipartisanship. I see him as someone who opposes things socially and culturally that I don't like. And so I don't trust Democrats on various issues. They promised me normalcy and they promised me economic stability. And so I had some hope that I would at least get that, even if I wasn't getting what I wanted on things like transgender rights or abortion. And I didn't get that. I still got inflation. And so now I'm super mad. And so I'll give this Trump guy another chance. Trump can't use Democrats as the same kind of foil once he is in office. And this was the true in the first term.
Yep.
Trump was always better as a guy out of power throwing rocks at Democrats in power. And once he got in power himself and he couldn't deliver on his own promises, voters turned on him. We saw it. We've seen this story before. And so Indiana Republicans seem to be acknowledging, you know what, my people, my constituents are not so enthralled with this guy now that I have to do what he says or else I'm going to lose in the primary. I can sit up to him and get away with it.
Yeah. And, Trump's really good at controlling the debate and telling everybody what to talk about. But when the Republican Party has to campaign, and they're going to be part of the time, we're going to talk about economic policy, and they'll look terrible. But can you imagine when the foreign policy conversation comes up and you got to defend this man, this national security strategy he's put out, this dripping with its, oh, gee whiz, we signed NATO with a continent that was white, and because there's immigration there, the day like it doesn't count anymore. Oh my God, that's a debate. That would be just Americans when they hear this stuff are going to go, wait, what?
Look, most voters don't vote on foreign policy. They vote on their pocketbook.
But debate performance matters no matter what the topic is.
Oh, sure. And I think a lot of voters are confused. Why is Donald Trump so fixated on Venezuela and getting a Nobel Peace Prize when he's not taking care of the thing he told me he was going to take care of, which is my cost of living?
Right.
I imagine you're a fan of FDR. I'm a fan of FDR.
Big fan of FDR.
But when he won his second term, after a lot of corporate America went after him, FDR had some delusions of that he had. A notion that maybe he was even an instrument of God, that he could do whatever he wanted and the voters were going to be with him no matter what he did. And then when he moved to do court packing,
they were not with him.
That's it. That blew up in his face.
Yep.
You can easily winning a second term can go to your head, and if anyone is a risk of delusions of grandeur, it's Donald Trump. He clearly believes he can do anything, and his voters won't leave him. He can promise lower prices and then jack up tariffs and then try to pay you off with a farmer's bailout and think that's going to cut it. He thinks he can travel the world and say he's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize and you're going to be so happy for him or happy they got the FIFA Peace Prize. He'd be happy they put his name on the Kennedy Center or the United States Institute of Peace.
He chiseled his name into that building.
Right.
Which is a felony.
He thinks that his people love it when he pats himself on the back, and people are going to learn the hard way that that's not how it works.
No.
That people can easily lose faith in you.
So you mentioned FDR. The reason I like FDR, many reasons, but among them, in 1938, in one of his fireside chats, he said, "I venture the challenging statement that if American democracy ceases to move forward as a living force, seeking day and night by peaceful means to better the lot of our citizens, fascism will grow in strength in our land." And oh my God, was he right?
Well, yes, and FDR was politically astute enough to realize that he'd gone over his skis on court packing, and even in the run up to World War II, he knew that wasn't a slam dunk politically, so he moved very gingerly in that later part of that second term. He had to lay a predicate to get the people on board. He didn't rush, for example, to
Japan laid a predicate
have a draft.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Japan laid a predicate for him in Pearl Harbor.
He got there. They got there. But there's a point in 1940 where he was really hesitant about a draft, and then Wendell Willkie said he was for it, and then after he was like, great, well, if you're going to be for it, my Republican opponent's going to be for it, I can be for it, it's not going to be an issue in the campaign. But that fireside chat you mentioned is an example of him realizing he has to convince people that this is important. He's got to lay that predicate down to get there. And Trump just thinks he can browbeat everyone into submission. That's not working for him.
No. Bill, we're out of time. As always, great to catch up. Love the piece on Maine, and your work is generally stuff that everybody should read. It's just so good. Tell everybody where they can find it.
Washington Monthly, WashingtonMonthly.com.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
We're wonderful. Take care.